Hello everybody, welcome to this video and welcome to my good friends over at r/vegetarian. So, I do have to admit, this title is slightly clickbait, but not really at the same time. I can't really explain why yet, but this video might not be what you're expecting, and this holds true like as you watch through the video too. Although I will still be explaining what is wrong with vegetarianism and an alternative. So, a little bit about me. I used to be vegetarian when I was 12. I was actually pescatarian, so I'm ex-vegetarian, kind of, ex-pescatarian. And there are a few reasons why I did this, right? I didn't want to hurt animals, and I didn't believe that fish could feel pain or were even sentient. And I was thinking, okay, eating meat harms animals, right? It is immoral to harm animals. I don't need to eat meat. And eating eggs and drinking milk is fine because milking a cow does not hurt it necessarily. And collecting the eggs of a chicken, like after it lays them, right? That's not hurting the chicken either. So that was my thought process. And I've got to say that I can completely empathize and appreciate what you vegetarians want to do with your ethics, right? I myself want to protect the animals. I don't want them to be exploited or harmed. And I believe in animal rights. So I'm going to start off with what is admittedly my weakest argument, right? Which is that if you're going by the logic of the appeal to nature fallacious argument, right? It only applies to meat. And this is what I mean, right? In nature, there are animals which can be described, categorized as herbivores, omnivores, carnivores. A lot of people believe that we're omnivores. Some even believe that we're carnivores. And thus, it could be said, it could be argued that we are biologically adapted to eat meat, which implies also that we have better health outcomes when eating it, right? And this makes sense because even though I don't believe that humans are omnivores or carnivores, I'm certain that we are very, very close to being herbivores. Obviously, when it comes to these categorizations, it's kind of a spectrum. It's not exactly like hard line. So I believe we are evolutionarily adapted to be herbivores. If you're wondering why, I will link something in the description for you. So it could be incorrectly argued that human beings are meant to, designed to, evolutionarily adapted to eat meat, right? However, this cannot be applied to milk or eggs, right? It is impossible to argue that human beings are designed for drinking breast milk from a cow as adults. And also eggs, that doesn't make sense either. There's no species which is dependent on eating another specific species' eggs to survive, or which flourishes based on eating the eggs of that specific species. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, warmed you up a little bit, I'm going to introduce you to the thesis of my video, basically, or the thesis of my next part of the video, which is that veganism is vegetarianism, but logically, morally consistent, and it is the logical conclusion of vegetarianism. Bet you weren't expecting that. Maybe you were, actually. There's a higher chance that you were. But I'm about to prove it. So the first thing that you should know is that the dairy and egg industries are the meat industries. So if you're a vegetarian, if you're an ethical vegetarian, meaning that you don't want to pay for animals to be tortured and killed, here's what you're basically saying to the industries, right? Hey, meat industry, fuck you and fuck your abuse and murder of animals, alright? I'm going to boycott you. You're not getting a dime of my money, ever. Here's $20, right? So, in my opinion, you shouldn't buy milk or eggs. You should boycott them, just because those industries are directly connected to the meat industry. They're completely inseparable. They're the same animals, right? Dairy cows are sent to be killed, as are chickens. Same industry, all right? Absolutely do not give your money to these people. So before we continue, I would like to make what I just said clear. Barring animals who die on the farm, either incidentally or who are killed by farmers, which I'm about to get into, there are precisely 0 animals in the dairy and egg industry which are not sent to be slaughtered for meat. 0. These industries are the same. I just wanted to make that clear before I continue. Okay, so here's where I start my argument that the milk and egg industries are animal abuse. So, first of all, animal abuse, animal exploitation, right? Enslaving tons of chickens and cows just to use them for a product is abuse, all right? Even if they aren't mistreated, it's at least exploitation. And of course, they're confined in areas, very small areas. All of us know this. It's abuse. For the uninitiated, you might be questioning my word use here. You might be thinking that I'm speaking from a place of emotion. Again, I implore you, hear what I'm about to say, and that will probably change your mind, and it will be clear to you that these are abuse, and that the milk and egg industries necessarily have cruelty as an integral component. So I'm going to start off here with the abuse that is necessary in the dairy industry, right? So a lot of you might not realize this. I didn't know either when I was vegetarian, but cows need to be pregnant or need to have given birth to produce milk, right? And this is similar to human women. So, how does the milk industry get around this problem? Well, rape. I shouldn't laugh at that, it's horrific, but I'm about to explain what I just said, right? In newspeak, they call it artificial insemination, or AI. You might hear it as that. But it's rape, right? Cows are forced into rape racks, cattle crushes, whatever you want to call it. They have metal objects around their necks so they can't move. Farmers stick a fist in their anus, hold their cervix, and inject bull semen into them. The whole while, I mean, just ignoring the fact right now that cows, like, even conceptually couldn't give consent to any sexual reproductive act that a human is doing onto them. This is just straight up rape. The cow doesn't like this, trying to get away, okay? And then, you might be thinking, so then the cow has to give birth. What happens then? Well, immediately, very quickly, the farmer steals the cow's calf from them, right? And cows have very strong maternal instincts. They don't like this. And of course this will happen several times over and over in a cow's life, right? So, going back to that maternal instincts thing, cows will attempt to even hide their calves from farmers. There's documented stories of this all over the internet. Look into it if you like. What else do I have to say about that? Right. And then the milk that would go to the calf is given to you. And the calf if it's a male, most of the time the males are just killed because they cannot produce milk. However, some of the time what the males can produce is semen. I mean, not some of the time, like most of the time, but some of the time when farmers have need for it, right? Because the other ones are just killed, bolt gunned into the skull, tossed into a dumpster. I wish I was exaggerating here. So, how do they get semen from bulls? You guessed it, rape. So, they have a device called electroejaculator. You can look it up if you're interested, where they basically... This is really vulgar, but it's the truth, alright? They basically stick a dildo in the bull's anus, right? In the same manner that they fist cows. Doesn't want this, of course not. I mean, sticking a dildo in a bull anus. And then they electrocute the bull through his ass until he's forced to ejaculate, and then they collect it. This whole thing is just rape, exploitation everywhere. So, moving on to eggs. So, when it comes to chickens, it's basically common knowledge at this point that they're confined to tiny cages. And by the way, if you think that cage-free or free-range eggs actually means anything, then you should stop believing that, because it could not be further from the truth, and it's just straight up industry lies and propaganda. I mean, it's 2023. At this point, you shouldn't be believing in cage-free eggs anymore. So, the other thing with eggs, there's a lot of other things. There's a lot of other cruelties that happen in the milk and egg industries. For example, there's like debeaking, and there's like infections, of course, that comes with loads of chickens being stuffed and crammed into tiny areas. There's also the fact that there's so many that chickens cannot form their pecking order, their social hierarchy, and I could go on. But what I wanted to say is that similarly to how the dairy industry disposes of a lot of their male calves by bolt gunning them in the head and throwing them in dumpsters because they don't have the use for them, the egg industry does a similar thing with male chicks. For example, they put a lot of male chicks into conveyor belts, which are dumped into macerators, which means blenders. Yes, they dump male chicks into blenders. Please do not pay for male chicks to be dumped into blenders, thank you. And there's a lot of other ways that they kill male chicks. If I remember correctly, one of them is gassing and like suffocating, drowning. Listen, if you're a vegetarian, you know that there's no humane way to kill an animal, okay? There's no humane way to intentionally and needlessly kill a sentient being which has a will to live, alright? Because doing so is violating their rights. Not because doing so is violating their rights. And these things which I just said are only done to produce milk or eggs, okay? They are not done in the meat industry, alright? And they lead into the meat industry anyway, okay? Stop paying for these things to happen, please. Next up is the environmental and health implications of a vegetarian diet. And I know that a lot of you vegetarians are not vegetarians because of the environmental or health benefits. I'm not vegan for the environmental or health benefits. I am vegan because I believe in animal rights. So, although there's a lot more to talk about when it comes to the environment and health, I'm not going to spend nearly as much time talking about it. So, when it comes to the environment, milk especially is extremely environmentally devastating. There's a lot of figures on water use that you might be interested in looking up. And I don't know about eggs. Honestly, eggs might be fine when it comes to the environment. Do not quote me on that, please. I have not done my research on that. But when it comes to health, all right, milk and eggs are extremely unhealthy. They are full of saturated fat and cholesterol. Consuming these things will greatly increase your risk of chronic diseases and death. Milk especially also has mammalian hormones, including estrogen. These things, human beings should not be eating these things, okay? So to conclude, vegetarianism has the same issues as carnism, and it is not that much better, if at all. It is not morally consistent. It does not lower demand for the meat industry. It does not protect animals. It does not protect animal rights. And it does not even protect you or the environment from the health or environmental outcomes that are caused by carnism. Veganism does, though. That's right. If you care about animal rights or welfare, if you care about the planet, if you care even just about your own health, do not go vegetarian. Go vegan.